Brethren, I am Stan Martin, a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason. You are about to see and hear several of our brethren tell you what Scottish Rite Freemasonry means to each of them. Their stories vary, but the common thread connecting them is education, history, and camaraderie. I hope you enjoy and learn from these personal, sincere, heartfelt remarks. Sit back and relax. I'll be talking to you again after these presentations are over.
As a young man, I first became aware of Masonry through my grandfather, a funeral, a Masonic funeral, and I think I was only 12 or 13 at the time. But what made me notice that after that was in the community, small community I grew up in, the people who were the business community, the community leaders of the city there, most typically had a Masonic ring on, and more often than not, that Masonic ring was a Scottish Rite ring. The thing that pushed me then was to become a DMLA, and for years after that, when I graduated from high school and went on to college, I didn't join the fraternity. A number of things pulled me off there, Army, professional life. Then I got active some years later when I said I wanted to get back in. The thing that pushes me about Masonry is that it is a fraternity that seeks to make good men better men. And I go back to that story that what impressed me as a young man was those business leaders, those community leaders, who took the time to work within the community and serve the fraternity. I found that by study, that you learn really what it is to be a man, a good man in the community. The opportunities that you receive once you've passed through the Blue Lodge with the York Rite and the Scottish Rite and the Shrine is, as we've said before, to seek further light. Now, in that regard, the Scottish Rite stands out more than the others by virtue of the fact that it's an institution for learning. And especially today with our new Masons, those young men knocking at our door, seeking further light, Scottish Rite is one of the places they can find that through all of the research and the availability of the brothers. I'm going to say this, that in this last year, as we've opened up in our meetings and had more open discussions with the craft, I think we've discovered one another, the interests that we have, the same similar interests, and where we would like this fraternity to grow and what we can each do. And that's why I think anybody who would like to seek further light should first knock on the door of the Scottish Rite. There are also other avenues available to them, the York Rite and the Shrine, but knock and seek, and then that door shall be open to you.
My name is Stan Martin and have been a Mason for many years, having been raised at Evergreen Lodge number 259 in Riverside, California. I became a Scottish Rite Mason in the Valley San Bernardino, the Orient of California, in 2001. This was a major positive highlight of my life, just incredibly so. Though all Masonic organizations are great, I chose the prestigious Scottish Rite to take advantage of its history, its education, and its camaraderie. I'm one of the first in the state of Arizona to have completed all 4 of the Master Craftsman courses, of which I learned so very much. The teachings of Scottish Rite have it considered to be the University of Freemasonry. Annually, I participate in the Scottish Rite reunions in Phoenix, most specifically in the 13th degree. For multiple years, I've been an officer of High Country Scottish Rite Club in Prescott, Arizona. This year, I'm Orator of the Lodge of Perfection in the Valley of Phoenix, the Orient of Arizona. I am extraordinarily proud of having been selected and approved by the Supreme Council, Southern Jurisdiction, in 2015 to be awarded as a 32nd degree Mason, the Knight Commander of the Court of Honor. It is of immense significance for me to be a Scottish Rite Mason. So much, in fact, that I have dedicated my Masonic career and these remarks to my late Uncle Sam Broder, whose Scottish Rite class of 1955 picture hangs in the lodge at the Scottish Rite in Phoenix, Arizona. In addition, the late Scottish Rite Mason, Brother Howard Hawk of Sedona, Arizona, whose lapel pin, the square and compass Brother Hawk gave to me when I was raised to the sublime degree of Master Mason, just as he received this very same pin. This is the pin he received when he was raised in 1947. Brother Howard strongly, fervently encouraged me to be a Scottish Rite Mason. I really sincerely try to live my life according to Scottish Rite virtues. There are none better, and I repeat, there just are no virtues better than those of the Scottish Rite. May your light and knowledge continue during your journey as a well-educated, informed, and proud Scottish Rite Mason. Thank you.
I'm Mike Fellows. I've been a Mason for 57 years and have enjoyed every one of them. I immediately went into the line to become Master of my lodge back in the 60s, finished that up, and then got started in Scottish Rite and the Shrine. I've, in the Scottish Rite in Los Angeles, I worked in, I think, every single degree. And that was a lot of fun because we had a full auditorium, full stage, professional makeup artists from the Hollywood studios, and everything else that goes with it, costumes that you couldn't believe. But in those days, we used to have classes of 75 and 80 men. And the more that you had to work with, the more fun you had. And getting new guys involved in doing some of the ritual work. The one thing that I've gotten out of Masonry and Scottish Rite and the Shrine too is the camaraderie that I think is unending. When I say brother so-and-so to a man, I've gotten so that that man is literally my brother. And that's one of the things that is near and dear to me. I don't say those things facetiously. They have meaning to me. And after 57 years, I think that Masonry has done more for me 10,000 times over what I've ever done for it.
Hi, my name is Hal Knowlton. I'm a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason and currently an Assistant Secretary for the Valley of Phoenix. I was first made a Mason back in 1975 in California, in Wilshire Garfield Lodge 442. And moved here to Arizona. And when I came here, I ended up joining Sun City Lodge 72, where I'm the chairman of the Trust Board of Trustees for the lodge. And I also joined the Scottish Rite in 2012. I went through the reunion of that, the fall reunion of that year, and then began to become active within the Scottish Rite. One of the things and the way that I got started in Masonry and got introduced to it was rather different than I would guess most young men end up doing that. My grandfather, on my mother's side of the family, was a 32nd degree Mason in California, but we never talked about it, and he never demonstrated that he was. And when he died, he had a Masonic funeral, and I was so impressed by that Masonic funeral and what they said and what they believed in, etc., that I had decided at that point in time I wanted to become a Mason. Now, I was only a young teenager at the time, and what I ended up doing is in high school, a friend of mine mentioned he was interested in Masonry. I said, so am I. And so we figured out what we needed to do to become members of a Blue Lodge. But before we did that, I entered DeMolay and was active in DeMolay until I was over 18 years of age. I became and got my third degree in Worcester Garfield 442. And I did that because of my grandfather. He was a great man, and he taught me only through his actions about the characteristics that make a great man. And I wanted to be like that in a Blue Lodge here as well as the Scottish Rite. One of the things I did after my reunion, I was so impressed with and just so overwhelmed with everything that you learn and get exposed to in the reunion that I decided to take the Master Craftsman program, which I did. And in that program, I learned a tremendous amount about Scottish Rite Masonry. Now, the one thing I would say about Masonry is the fact that we have so much as brothers, we have so much in common in terms of common belief, common interests, common goals and objectives that you want to achieve, both in Masonry and outside of Masonry, and the values are the same. And I know that anywhere I go, if I meet another Mason, I know I'm talking to an individual who has the types of values, etc., that I am interested in. And I will openly become a friend and a brother to that Mason. Because I can deal with that individual knowing that they have the same background, the same education as far as Masonry is concerned, and the same interest in terms of becoming a better person themselves. Now, one of the things that I've done here in the Scottish Rite is I am in 4 or 5 of the degrees, etc. In fact, I'm the director of the 22nd degree at this point in time, and I do the other service type work. Work here in the Scottish Rite office, but I also work down, we go down to St. Vincent's twice a month and we help serve the poor and help them out to the degree that we can do that. And we're a bunch of brothers who get together and go down and do that on a regular basis. So I know that these are the kinds of people that I want to be involved with. Now, a brother of mine who is Jack Ritchie, he and I, after we do our service at St. Vincent's, leave and we start to drive home, and there happens to be a McDonald's on the way. And so we stop there, and one of the things that I do, and now Jack has picked up and does it with me, is if there's an individual there who is hungry and has not eaten, we will buy them lunch. Whatever they want, however much they want, if they're hungry, we will buy them a lunch. Because no one in this country should ever go hungry. And so these are the types of people that you will get involved with, you'll learn with, etc. in the Scottish Rite. On a closing note, I would like to just let you know that I encourage you to do research about your family heritage. But the other thing I learned is that on another part of my family is that I had Masonry throughout my family heritage. That goes all the way back to the American Revolution, and in particular to the Boston Tea Party, where I learned that I'm a direct descendant of a Mason who belonged to the St. Andrew's Lodge in Boston, Massachusetts, and was one of the 50 to 60 who dressed up as Mohawk Indians and raided the ship and threw the tea in the harbor.
Hi, I'm Anthony Darrin, treasurer for the Phoenix Scottish Rite bodies. I started my Masonic journey as a DeMolay back in 1964, and it was because of the experience that I wanted to become a Mason. While there were many years between being a DeMolay and becoming a Mason in 2000, I tried my best to live my life by the cardinal virtues I learned as a DeMolay. I became a Mason because I wanted to be in the company of good and honorable men that were dedicated to God, their family, our country, and in pursuit of brotherly love, relief, and truth. As a Mason, and especially as a Scottish Rite Mason, I hoped that I could contribute to the betterment of society provide relief to those in need, and to seek truth in life's endeavors. As a Scottish Rite Mason, I believe our purpose is to pay it forward by living an exemplary life and pursuing philanthropic efforts to help those in need. While some may look at Freemasonry with a jaundiced eye, I have always been very proud of being a DMLA, a Mason, and more importantly, a Scottish Rite Mason, because I believe the world is a better place through our efforts as a Masonic organization.
Hello, my name is Erik, 33rd degree. I am the Deputy of the Supreme Council in the Orient of Arizona. As with most children, I grew up having two grandfathers. As I matured, I realized that my grandfathers were on different ends of the economic spectrum. As a young child, this was not something that one often thinks about. What I did know about each of my grandfathers is that they shared very similar character traits. Each of my grandfathers were men of high integrity. They were honest. They were genuine. They were sincere, and they subscribed to high moral and ethical principles. I knew both of them to be Masons, but at that age, I wasn't sure what being a Mason was. When I graduated high school, I moved away out of state to go to college to study architecture, and I returned after receiving my architecture degree. I returned back to Phoenix, and I began working as a young apprentice in a large firm in Phoenix. And there was an crusty old man that was working in this firm as a construction superintendent by the name of Bud Little. And he always was a very kind man with a smile and always had something pleasant to say, and I admired him as well. And I noticed he wore a belt buckle with a square and compasses on it, which I recognized that insignia. And one day I asked Bud, I saw him wearing the belt buckle, and I said, what does that symbolize? And I didn't realize what I had just done, because the following day, that inquiry has changed my life. The next day, I had a petition in my hand, and so that was the humble beginnings of my Masonic journey. And I soon learned the meaning of the various symbols presented to me, and I learned what it meant for all men to meet on the level. This is an organization that goes to the heart of human character and is void of material wages, if any be due. The year was 1983, and here I am as a young single architect, just establishing my professional credentials. And now I'm going through the Blue Lodge. It was that same year that I entered Scottish Rite and also the Shrine. I was engaged with all the units. I found my home in Scottish Rite. Throughout the years, I participated in many degrees and always returned for the reunions that have become a great learning experience and influence in my life, no matter how many times I've seen them or participated in them. As you may discover the number 33 to be a significant number in Freemasonry, it was the anniversary of my 33rd year, being the 33rd degree, that I achieved the highest honor of my life, that of being appointed by the Sovereign Grand Commander as Deputy of the Supreme Council in Arizona. I have had the privilege to recently visit the House of the Temple in Washington, D.C., and this experience will always be remembered as one of the highlights of my life. It is my desire to lead by example and encourage enthusiasm among all brothers to carry on this great fraternity for future generations to experience.
Brethren, you have heard various Scottish Rite Masons convey their feelings, their remarks, their comments. We've kept this video limited due to time constraints. However, there are innumerable brethren who would bare their heart and soul to tell you what Scottish Rite, Freemasonry, means to each of them. It is hopeful that you too, someday, will convey your thoughts in a manner similar to this. So mote it be.